My sister looked me in the eye and said I was too poor to host Thanksgiving. Just like that. Like money was all that mattered. The camera would be tight on my face, but I wouldn't be crying. Not yet. Just steady. Focused. My kids had already made little place cards. They spent all week drawing turkeys in crayon, hanging them in the window, counting down the days, and I had to tell them no one was coming. My name is Elena Meyer. I'm a single mom of 2. I work night shifts at the hospital and come home to 2 bright-eyed kids who don't care if our plates match or if the turkey's from the discount freezer bin. They care that we're together, that we sit at the table, say what we're thankful for, and laugh over pie. That's what Thanksgiving has always meant in our house. But this year, my family decided something else mattered more. My sister Marla and her husband invited everyone to her brand new house in the suburbs. Big kitchen, granite countertops, a formal dining room she's never used. She called me 4 days before Thanksgiving and said, "It's just better this way." I didn't argue. I didn't ask why no one stood up for me. I didn't say anything at all, because if I spoke, I knew I wouldn't be able to hold it together. I just smiled and told the kids it would be a small dinner this year, just the 3 of us. They tried to be brave, but on Thanksgiving morning, I set our little table anyway. Bella placed her paper crafts carefully at each seat. Luca folded napkins like he'd seen in a restaurant once, all proud. I tried to keep it together. Then I heard it, a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not a single person had texted me that morning. My sister hadn't even sent a generic Happy Thanksgiving. So when I opened the door, I was stunned. A man in a black jacket stood holding 2 massive silver trays, steam curling out from beneath the lids. Behind him, a delivery truck, the kind you'd see outside a wedding venue or upscale catering hall. He glanced at a clipboard and asked, "Elena Meyer?" I nodded, too confused to speak. "Thanksgiving delivery," he said. "Whole spread. Someone sent this for you." I stared at the trays, smelled rosemary, butter, pumpkin spice, real mashed potatoes, gravy, pecan pie. Inside the box was a simple white envelope, no return address, just my name. I opened it. The card said, "From the person you forgot." And before I could even process what that meant, before I could blink, another knock. I opened the door again, and standing there was my grandfather. He looked straight at me and said, "They can eat at Marla's if they want. I'm eating here." He walked past me, took off his coat, and nodded toward the table. And that's when everything started to change. People think Thanksgiving is about food, the turkey, the stuffing, the pie. But it's not. Not really. It's about who you share it with. It's about stories over mashed potatoes and remembering who brought the burnt rolls last year. It's about belonging. And for the last 5 years, Thanksgiving belonged to us. Me, my kids, and the rest of my family. In our little house with the scuffed-up floors and the mismatched plates. After my mom passed, everyone naturally started coming to my place. I think they saw it as neutral ground. My sister Marla had her own perfect life with her picture-perfect decor. But my place, it felt warm. It felt like mom's. I'm Elena Meyer. I'm 35, a nurse, and a single mom to 2 kids who have no idea how hard I work to make our world feel whole. I never planned on raising them alone. Their father left when Bella was just a baby. He didn't leave a note, just his silence. But we managed. Our home is small, a 2-bedroom rental in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. It's the kind of place where you can smell what your neighbor's cooking if the windows are open. In the fall, leaves pile up in the backyard and the front steps creak if you put your weight in the wrong spot. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. This year, the kids were more excited than ever. Bella, my 7-year-old, made paper garlands in fall colors and hung them across the archway between the living room and kitchen. Luca, who's 10 and already thinks like an artist, sketched a cornucopia in colored pencil and taped it above the dining table. They asked every day how many people were coming, what time Grandpa would arrive, whether Aunt Janice was bringing her famous sweet potatoes. I didn't have much to spend. Between rent, groceries, and the car needing new tires, I had to budget every dollar. But I planned carefully, bought ingredients over 3 paychecks, picked up a turkey breast instead of a full bird, found a recipe online for homemade rolls that only needed flour, yeast, and a little love. The plan was tight, but it felt good. Familiar, like I could still give my kids something to hold on to. The kitchen was where I felt closest to my mom. She used to hum when she cooked, always barefoot, always a little flour on her cheek by the time the pie was in the oven. I caught myself humming once. Same tune she used to sing, and it brought tears to my eyes. I wiped them quickly. The kids were watching. There's a photo of her on our fridge. She's holding a spatula, standing next to me at 14. That Thanksgiving, she let me make the green bean casserole by myself. She called it the beginning of the handoff. I didn't know then how fast that handoff would come. I just knew I wanted to make her proud. When the weather started getting colder, the kids pulled out the Thanksgiving decorations from the storage bin in the closet. Bella found a ceramic turkey she accidentally chipped last year and said, "He's still cute. We can put him on the windowsill." Luca made a list of who would sit where. He drew little cards with everyone's name, added doodles. "I put a leaf on Grandpa Frank's because he loves raking," he told me, grinning. They didn't see how tired I was. They just saw a mom who made holidays feel like magic. I never told them how much I worried, how late I stayed up checking bank balances and coupon codes, how every year I quietly hoped no appliance would break before Thanksgiving Day. I didn't let them see that side. They deserved joy, not stress. They deserved the version of Thanksgiving where everything feels warm and full. So I planned. I prepared. I smiled. When Marla called 4 days before Thanksgiving and said, "It's just better if we host this year," I felt something in my chest tighten. She said it so smoothly, like it had already been decided by everyone but me. I looked at my kitchen after that call, at the hand-traced turkeys taped to the fridge, at the grocery list on the counter, at my daughter's cut-out construction paper pumpkins taped to each dining chair. I took a deep breath and said nothing. Because in that moment, I still believed they'd remember what this kitchen meant, what it held, what we'd built here year after year. But I was wrong. It happened on a Monday, 4 days before Thanksgiving. I had just gotten home from a long shift at the hospital. I was standing at the stove stirring a pot of canned soup when my phone buzzed. It was Marla. I hesitated before answering. She never called unless it was about some family announcement or her latest home project. Her voice was calm but clipped. "Elena, we've all been talking," she began. I felt my stomach tighten. "We just think it might be better if I host Thanksgiving this year." I blinked. "What?" "I mean, your place is just kind of small, you know? It's been tight the last few years. And you've been working a lot. It's probably a relief, right?" A relief. That's what she called it. I didn't say anything, I just listened. Soup started to bubble over, but I let it. I couldn't take my eyes off the drawing Luca had taped to the fridge. It said, "Welcome Family," in crooked letters with a hand-drawn table underneath it, all 12 chairs filled in. Marla kept talking. "Look, it's not a big deal. It's just that with the kids running around and everything, my place has more room. Greg's got the outdoor heaters set up, and the kitchen is big enough to hold everyone." "It's always been at my place," I said quietly. "Right, but that was before," she replied, as if that meant anything at all. "We just thought this year it might be more comfortable." "We?" I asked. She hesitated. "Well, yeah, everyone agreed it would be easier." Everyone. That word hit hard. Not just Marla, not just her husband, my Uncle Roy, my Aunt Janice, my cousin Mia, even Grandpa Frank, maybe. None of them thought I was worth defending. No one called to say, "We want to come to your place like always." No one checked to see how I felt. I felt myself shrinking, holding the phone tighter like I was holding the last thread of something fragile. I told her, "Sure, that's fine." She said, "Great. I knew you'd understand." Then she hung up, like it was nothing. Like she hadn't just swept away 5 years of tradition in a 30-second phone call. When I turned around, Bella was standing there in her fuzzy socks, holding a paper turkey she had just finished coloring. "Mom, was that Aunt Marla?" I nodded. "Is she coming early to help?" she asked. I couldn't lie fast enough. "Actually, sweetheart, Thanksgiving's going to be a little different this year." Her face dropped. "Are we not having it here?" I forced a smile. "We're going to have a small one. Just us, a cozy dinner." "But I already made decorations. I was going to sing the thankful song for everybody." "I know, baby." She looked at the table where she had set out her hand-drawn napkin rings. "Why doesn't anyone want to come?" "It's not about that," I said, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. She walked to her room and closed the door without another word. Luca came out a few minutes later. He had overheard enough to know. He didn't cry, he just asked, "Should I take the banner down?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say they were wrong, that we were still hosting, that none of it mattered, but I couldn't. Not when my voice was already shaking. He pulled the construction paper banner off the wall himself, folded it carefully, didn't look at me as he did it. That night I stayed up after they went to bed. I sat in the living room with the lights off, staring at the empty table. I thought about canceling everything. Maybe I'd pick up a pizza, watch a movie with the kids, try to make the day pass quietly. Maybe if I said nothing, it wouldn't hurt as much. But then I looked around that little room, and I saw what they had built. What I had built. A house that held every laugh from every holiday since my mom passed. A place where my children knew they belonged. A place filled with glue-sticked crafts and burnt rolls and love. And that's when I made my decision. We would still have Thanksgiving, even if no one came. The morning before Thanksgiving, I stood in the grocery store staring at the last shelf of cranberry sauce. 2 cans left. I picked one up, held it in my hand, and thought about how my mom used to joke that it didn't matter if it was fresh or from a can, as long as it was on the table. She always put it in the same white dish with the little blue flowers around the rim. I still had that dish, tucked in the cabinet behind the chipped mugs. I dropped the can into the basket and moved on. 1 small turkey breast, a bag of potatoes, green beans, 2 boxes of stuffing mix, and a frozen pie. I didn't have enough for anything fancy, but I had enough. I kept reminding myself that it wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about showing my kids that love didn't leave just because people did. Back home, Bella was cutting out paper leaves and writing words on them like hope and family. Luca had drawn a new sign. It was simpler than the first one, just the word thankful in block letters, taped to the front door. They didn't ask if anyone was coming. They knew the answer, but they kept working. I think we were all trying to pretend it felt normal. That evening, I prepped everything I could. I boiled the potatoes and seasoned the turkey. I set the table with the same dishes we always used, mismatched and chipped, but clean and full of memory. I folded napkins and placed Bella's paper leaves at each spot. I put the cranberry sauce in Mom's dish. Later, when the kids were asleep, I sat down and stared at the table. 3 seats. I thought about putting away the extra chairs, but I couldn't do it. It felt like giving up, like letting them win. So I left them, even if no one would sit in them. I wanted my children to walk into that room and see a holiday, not a disappointment. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept getting up to check the turkey in the fridge, the pie on the counter, the seating arrangement. Around 4 in the morning, I finally sat down in the kitchen and cried for the first time. Not loud, just quiet tears while everyone else slept. I let it out and then got up and wiped my face because the day was here, and it was mine whether anyone showed up or not. Thanksgiving morning was gray, cold but not snowing. I turned on the oven and put the turkey in, set the music low, and tried to hum the song my mom used to hum. The kids came out in their pajamas, hair messy, still half asleep but smiling. "Is it just us?" Bella asked. I nodded. "Just us." She smiled a little. "That's okay." We cooked together. I let them stir the stuffing and mash the potatoes. Bella snuck bites of pie filling when she thought I wasn't looking. Luca folded napkins into triangles and told me he saw it on a cooking show. They didn't complain. They didn't ask questions. They just helped. By noon, the house smelled like cinnamon and rosemary. The candles were lit. The table was set. I'd changed out of my pajamas and put on the sweater my mom gave me the last year she was alive. The kids were dressed. Everything looked ready. But the house was quiet. No knocks, no phones buzzing, no cars pulling up. Just the 3 of us standing in the living room looking toward the door like maybe someone would remember. I was about to call them to the table when it happened. A knock. Sharp, confident, unexpected. I walked slowly to the door, heart pounding. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't told anyone I was still hosting. I opened it, and standing there was a man in a black jacket with a clipboard in one hand and steam rising behind him from trays in a large delivery cart. "Thanksgiving order for Elena Meyer?" he asked. I froze. "I didn't order anything," he smiled. "Well, someone did. Full catered meal. Everything you need." I stared at him, then at the silver trays, the warm scents drifting toward me. He handed me a small envelope with my name on the front. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a simple card, no name, just 6 words written in neat handwriting, "From the person you forgot." And in that moment, I didn't feel forgotten at all. I stood in the doorway, frozen, still holding the card. From the person you forgot. I read it again as if the words would change. They didn't. I looked up at the delivery driver, waiting for a hint, a name, something that would tell me who had done this. He just smiled and said, "Where should I put the food?" I stepped aside. Kitchen straight ahead. He wheeled in tray after tray, a full roasted turkey, golden and crisp, sage stuffing, sweet potatoes glazed with brown sugar, 2 kinds of pie, real whipped cream, a basket of fresh dinner rolls, still warm. Everything smelled like home, like the kind of Thanksgiving I thought we had lost. I stood in the kitchen and watched him unpack the trays with practiced hands. He didn't say much. When he was done, he tipped his cap and handed me a receipt that showed nothing but zeros. "It's covered," he said. Then he turned and left. I heard Bella behind me whisper, "Mom, did you do all this?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart, someone else did." Luca stepped closer to the table and stared at the food, eyes wide. "This looks like something from one of Grandpa's stories." Before I could answer, another knock came. I turned, my heart racing again. I walked to the door and opened it. There, standing on my porch in a wool coat and a flat cap, was my grandfather, Frank Meyer, 78 years old, former Army sergeant, the kind of man who only speaks when he means it. He looked me in the eyes and said, "They can eat at Marla's if they want. I'm eating here." He stepped inside without waiting for an answer, took off his coat and laid it neatly over the back of a chair. Then he turned toward the table. "Well," he said, "somebody set this up right. Who made the napkins into triangles?" Luca beamed. "I did." Grandpa nodded. "That's the kind of detail that makes a meal feel special." He sat down in his usual seat at the head of the table, the same seat he took every year in our house. Then he looked up at me. "I know what they said, and I know what they didn't say, but I also know this is where your mother would have wanted to be." I felt something in my chest crack open, not from sadness, but from relief, from the weight of finally being seen. Then came another knock. I opened the door, and there was my Aunt Janice. She was holding a bowl of her famous sweet potatoes, still steaming, her eyes already watery. "I'm sorry, Elena," she said. "I should have said something." Behind her was Uncle Roy carrying a bag of drinks. Then came Mia, my cousin, holding her toddler in one arm and a dish of mac and cheese in the other. "I told Marla I wasn't feeling well," she said with a small laugh. I guess I lied. Each of them stepped inside, eyes soft, hands full, no one needing to explain much. They knew they had followed the crowd, and now they were choosing differently. Soon my little house was filled with voices and footsteps and the sound of chairs scraping across the floor. The candles flickered. The kids ran from room to room showing their crafts and drawings. Then, finally, Marla arrived. She stood at the door with a casserole dish in her hands and a look on her face like she wasn't sure if she belonged. I opened the door but said nothing. She stepped inside, looked at the table, then at Grandpa. "I didn't know everyone would come here," she said, her voice low. Grandpa didn't look up from his plate. He just said, "Maybe next time, don't forget who the heart of this family is." No one spoke for a moment. Then Bella walked up to her and said, "You can sit next to me if you want." Marla blinked, nodded, and followed her to the table. When we all sat down, the room felt full in the best way. Full of food, yes, but also full of something that had been missing for a while. Gratitude, forgiveness, presence. Grandpa raised his glass. "To Elena," he said, "who made this house a home and never needed anyone's permission to do it." Everyone raised their glasses, even Marla, and that was the Thanksgiving I didn't host, but it was the one that reminded everyone what family really means. The day after Thanksgiving, I stood in my kitchen surrounded by empty pie tins, stacked plates, and crumpled napkins. The house was quiet again. The warmth still lingered, not just from the oven, but from the people who had filled the space with laughter, stories, and something we hadn't shared in a long time: honesty. It had been the most unexpected Thanksgiving of my life. Not because of the food or the surprise delivery, or even the moment Grandpa walked through the door like it was never a question where he belonged. What made it unforgettable was the shift. Something in the air had changed. The lines between pride and resentment, between silence and truth, had finally cracked. Bella sat at the kitchen table with a piece of pumpkin pie for breakfast. She had her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm and was humming softly as she licked whipped cream off her fork. Luca was on the floor nearby sketching a new Thanksgiving banner. This one had all our names on it, including Grandpa's, Aunt Janice's, even Marla's. I asked him, "You're adding everyone?" He nodded. "They came, didn't they?" I smiled. "Yes, they did." He looked up at me. "Will we host again next year?" I thought about it. Not the logistics, not the grocery budget or the dishes or the space. I thought about what it meant for him to ask that. I thought about what it meant to finally feel chosen without asking to be. "Yes," I said. "I think we will." That night, after the kids went to bed, I found the card again. I had left it on the mantel, still sealed in the envelope it came in. 6 words that rewrote the day. "From the person you forgot." I read them again, slower this time. I thought about who it could have been. At first, I believed it was Grandpa. It made sense. The timing, the message, the way he walked in like the head of the table had never moved. But something in his eyes when he saw the food said otherwise. He had been surprised too. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe Mia. Maybe one of the nurses from work. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the point wasn't who sent it, but what it reminded me of. That I mattered. That being overlooked doesn't mean being invisible forever. That sometimes, when people finally see what's missing, they come back. And sometimes, you don't need to chase them to remind them who you are. For years, I let myself believe that gratitude was about being quiet, about keeping my head down and accepting whatever was given. I thought hosting Thanksgiving was a privilege I had to earn, that I had to prove I was good enough, stable enough, successful enough to belong. But that day, I learned something different. I wasn't too poor to host Thanksgiving. I was too underestimated, too easy to dismiss, too quiet about what I gave, and maybe that's what needed to change. The truth is, families don't fall apart because of money. They fall apart because people stop showing up for each other. They fall apart when traditions turn into obligations and love gets measured by square footage and serving platters. This year, no one brought matching dishes. People sat wherever there was space. The kids spilled juice. We ran out of forks halfway through dessert, and yet it was the most beautiful Thanksgiving we'd ever had. Because it wasn't about appearances. It was about presence, about humility, about coming back when it would have been easier to stay away. Marla sent me a text that night. No long apology. Just one sentence. "Thank you for reminding me what matters." It was enough. I don't know what next year will bring, but I do know this. In my little house with its scuffed floors and chipped plates, we will celebrate again because we have roots here. We have history. And now we have a future that feels more whole. I'll keep the card in my drawer, not to remember the pain, but to remember the turning point, to remember that sometimes being forgotten is the beginning of being seen again. And if anyone ever tells me I'm too poor to host Thanksgiving, I'll invite them anyway, because now I know exactly what I'm rich in. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, made you think about your own family, or reminded you what really matters during the holidays, I'd love for you to be part of this community. Please like the video if it meant something to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone. And comment below, tell me, what does Thanksgiving mean to you? If you'd like to hear more real stories about life, family, and the moments that change everything, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. From my home to yours, thank you for being here.